hope that our side, the government and the consortium, in particular Woodside, become more active in the negotiations so that we reach an agreement soon. The Timorese side, our side, has some very strong, valid arguments on technical, commercial and financial basis to support our preference for the pipeline to be brought to Timor-Leste. I hope that the two sides, our side, the government, and the consortium led by Woodside, restart talks, which they have been doing anyway. There have been talks between the two sides, but I hope that the consortium and the Australian federal government should help in persuading the consortium to bring the pipeline to Timor-Leste. I have been thoroughly briefed by our Secretary of State for Natural Resources, Mr. Alfredo Pires. The position of our government seems to be very reasonable, based on solid technical and financial data that prove that the pipeline is a viable commercial option, that is a viable technical option. So I hope that in the best interest of all, that the consortium drop their objections to the pipeline coming to Timor-Leste. Let's sign the agreement and bring the pipeline to Timor-Leste. We give maximum guarantees about security, stability in this country, in the areas around the investments, particularly onshore, so that we can obtain maximum benefit. Certainly, I know that in the Australian political system, the federal government, the state governments do not have much of a say. These are decisions that have to be made primarily on commercial, financial, technical grounds. The government cannot impress upon a company a decision that they might not want to do. But this is not a matter only for the companies, it's a matter for the two governments. It has to do with the broader Australian federal government interests, responsibilities in the region. So I would hope that the Australian government could see how important it would be for the pipeline to come to Timor-Leste. Timor-Leste could be a major regional gas and petroleum hub in the region. Based on our plans, we would have refineries that would create complete independence for us, for the region. Timor-Leste is a forward position in relation to Darwin, forward in relation to the markets in the region. So we are much closer to the region, to China, to Korea, to Japan, than Greatersunrise itself. If we are to have a floating there that is untested, it will be a completely new technology, no guarantees that it will work. So I personally have been convinced, by our side, by our Secretary of State, that we are proposing is technically sound, commercially, financially feasible. Well, I believe we will reach an agreement. This is not like an insurmountable problem. We can look at ways how there can be cost sharing, co-financing. The Timor-Leste government could come in with some other incentives, extra incentives beyond our already very generous tax policies. Investors pay far more in terms of tax in Timor-Leste than in Australia. Our labor costs are much cheaper than in Australia, because the cost made, the estimated cost made by the consortium in regard to the pipeline to Timor-Leste are based on Australian costs, based on Australian labor costs, which is 100 times more expensive than Timor-Leste, based on Australian tax, that is far, far higher than Timor-Leste. So if we look at the labor cost of Timor-Leste, our very generous tax, plus the fact that we are already much closer to Asia than Australia or Greatersunrise itself, I believe that at the end of the day we will reach a conclusion that commercially, financially speaking, the Timor-Leste option is the best, both on technical grounds, on financial grounds, commercial, and also security. We guarantee absolute security to the enterprise. Well, the federal government in Canberra is very familiar with the issue. They know where we stand, and we run the risk of the agreement, the treaty expire, and that would be the detriment also of Australia, not only of Timor-Leste, because if the agreement runs out, expire, and declare null and void, well, we will deal again with the issue of maritime boundary. Who tends to lose with discussions on continental shelf? We, Timor-Leste and Australia, share a continental shelf. There are no two continental shelves between Australia and Timor-Leste. There is one continental shelf. And even if we were to accept, and I emphasize, even if we were to accept the continental shelf principle as the basis for a maritime boundary, I am saying we have only one continental shelf. There are no two continental shelves. So if we are going to follow what is fair, then let's draw the maritime boundary in the middle. And that means all of the oil and gas so far found belong to Timor-Leste. So I don't think it is in Australia's interest to allow the 2005 agreement to lapse, to expire, because then ipso facto, also the agreement on freezing this discussion and decision on the maritime boundary for 40 years will expire. Then we have to look for avenues to assert our sovereign claims, our sovereign rights to a fair, internationally accepted maritime boundary. Well, the pipeline coming to Timor-Leste would be an engine of growth, of enormous economic growth, of independence, of providing Timor-Leste with a larger influence in Southeast Asia and beyond, would create thousands of jobs, would create wealth, therefore would create enhanced peace and stability, security. Therefore, this is in Australia's national interest.